Well, Seattle, we start the homestand with an overtime game and an overtime loss. Let's break down what happened against Calgary and some goalie swapping happening between the Mavericks, the Firebirds, and of course the Seattle Kraken. And we'll close the show because we have an official Seattle Kraken reveal of the Winter Classic jersey happening tomorrow. Let's discuss on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you your team every single day. I'm Erica L. Ayala, rocking the natural curls, no product, all natural here. I feel like I've got my Jimi Hendrix headband on. We're going to talk Seattle, not just Seattle music, but Seattle hockey. Oh, another tough one for the Seattle Kraken as they fall to the Calgary Flames. We're going to talk about that on today's episode. Before we do that, let me tell you that this episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off on the Game Time app. Again, Locked On NHL, $20 off after you download the Game Time app. Love Game Time. Okay, talking about Game Time. Once again, the Seattle Kraken fall, or I should say, once again, the Seattle Kraken play in a game with a 4-3 final. It did not go in our favor this time, went to overtime, and the Calgary Flames were able to seal the deal. Now, the Kraken got off to a little bit of a slow start in as much as the Calgary Flames scored first. Now, what did we talk about on yesterday's episode? We talked about the Calgary Flames coming in and not necessarily having the best power play, but we needed to be careful on the PK. Well, as it turns out, Lindholm scores the first goal. Vince Dunn ties it up with a slap shot in the first period, assisted by Wenberg. But then we see that the Calgary Flames, Huberdeau on the power play. It's a power play goal that gets the Calgary Flames ahead. Eberle and McCann would score in the second frame. Yay, Kraken, we have a lead going into the third period. We talked about that on yesterday's show, and we talk about it throughout the episodes. However, Mangiapane and the Calgary Flames would not go away. They, being the Seattle Kraken, give up a goal at the 15:53 mark in the third period. Yikes. We heard from Joey Daccord today, who actually came into this game in relief of Philipp Grubauer, who left, I believe it was in the second period. There are some people making some just kind of deductive reasoning, using their deductive reasoning, saying that there was a breakaway. We talk about breakaways. We have to eliminate breakaways. And Philipp Grubauer run into, and, maybe that's some of what happened there. But anyway, that notwithstanding, Joey Daccord had a pretty good game, but he was asked about his show of frustration after last night's loss. And I thought he had a really great response. He talked about the frustration being because he feels that not only did he have a good enough performance, but that the team had a good enough performance to win and that the result wasn't there. He also talked about feeling that way a few times this season. Dave Hakstol was asked a little bit about Joey Daccord, and what Dave said is that for him, Joey's performance last night was indicative of how he's performed throughout the season, and that he's been solid, and that he's a young goaltender still learning. in the NHL. My kind of inkling is that, Dave Hakstol, I love that he's usually almost never really, as I say, defies or throws his guys under the bus. But I do think that he wants more from Joey Dax. Listen, I think both of the goals that he let in, because he came in and again, the second frame clean sheet there for the Kraken and for Joey Daccord. So none of these goals in the first period or in the early half of the game are credited to Joey Daccord. But what I saw is Joey Daccord being a goaltender that moves a lot, and he overcommitted in both circumstances, the goal in the third period and in overtime. I should say, excuse me, the goal in overtime, he overcommitted. The goal in the third period, it looked like he overcommitted only because he was setting up for a shot that then ended up being blocked. It got blocked, it died, and Mangiapane, with his momentum, carried him so that he was able to find the loose puck before Joey Daccord could correct. In overtime, Joey Daccord overcorrected and then had to cut all the way across the crease. And then it was Larson and Wenberg. I actually think, because Joey Daccord, if you look at the replay, in the overtime goal, Joey Daccord, he has no stick. I think what happens is that Wenberg tries to slide and block the shot coming in, and he inadvertently takes Joey's stick away. I mean, I've looked at it a few times. It's just, my take on it from last night's game and overall is that Joey Dax sometimes has really gnarly luck. And in the next segment, I actually want to go over to something that I came across on social media, because I think it helps to explain with statistical analysis what I have been trying to understand and wrap my mind around. If you are an everydayer, if you are an OGer, I talk about all the time that I can't quite put my finger on why the Seattle Kraken play differently, presumably, in front of Joey Daccord than any other goaltender. This has happened with Chris Driedger. It's happened with Martin Jones. It's happening with Joey Daccord. And there's someone that I think maybe has pointed me to some analytics that we can use to corroborate my eye test observations. And we're going to talk about that because, as I mentioned, Philipp Grubauer leaves the game. Dave Hakstol said today he's day-to-day, and there's been some rotations going on, including with the Kansas City Mavericks, the guy I was supposed to talk to at tomorrow's game here in Tulsa, Jack LaFontaine, up to Coachella Valley, Chris Driedger up to the Seattle Kraken. We're going to talk about that and much more on today's episode of Locked on Kraken. Before we do that, let me let you know once again about our friends over at Game Time. If you're an everydayer and OGer, then I spent training camp and preseason in Seattle. And while I was there, I caught a Mariners game. I caught a little dragon at Neptune Theater. And that's because of this app right here, Game Time. Whether you want to plan in advance or find something in the area, I'm going to be in the Pacific Northwest, Portland, for the first time later this month. And what I'm going to do when I get there is take a look at the Game Time app, whether it's music venues, whether it's sporting events. If you want to find tickets and especially be able to see where you're going to sit, Game Time is the place to be. I also love the Game Time guarantee. Now, the way this works is if you find a seat that you love, you purchase that seat through the Game Time app. If you find seats in the same row for the same event that are less than what you paid at Game Time gives you 110% of your of the difference, I should say. That's the Game Time guarantee. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That will give you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and make sure you use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. And I'm so excited that Locked On Kraken, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, who has made history for having the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. The Locked On Sports Today podcast is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with local experts around the Locked On Network. And that includes our national shows like Locked On NHL. I contribute to Locked On NHL for the Women's Hockey Spotlight. And of course, Gil Martin, who we've had on the show a few times, is the Monday Friday host. He co-hosts Friday with Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever 24/7 streaming channel. I feel like we got to get the Seattle Kraken on Locked On Sports Today. Between the leak of the NHL Winter Classic jerseys and Utah wrestling, it was on a Bleacher Report podcast. I don't know. It's been very strange. But again, coming up later on the show, we do have some news of when you will officially see the jerseys being revealed by the Seattle Kraken. What if they're different than what we've seen? They're probably not going to be. But I think it'll be interesting. Dave Hakstol said he saw them. He's seen good feedback from all ages, so he's pretty pumped. Says he's seen an image. He hasn't felt the jerseys yet. He was also asked if maybe he'd be asked to wear a fedora, which he was like, oh gosh, I don't know, as he closed out media availability. I alluded to this. So, as those who are everydayers and OGers know, and if you are part of our Locked On Kraken insiders, you will hear from general manager and head coach Tad O'Had. He is the GM and head coach of the Kansas City Mavericks. I spoke to him the other day after a 5-1 win by the Mavericks over the Tulsa Oilers right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where my headquarters is. And he had really great things to say about how the prospect pipeline works. And one of the players that I had scheduled with the Mavericks to talk to was the one and only Jack LaFontaine. He started for the Mavericks in their 5-1 win over the Oilers on Sunday. I'm kind of gutted I didn't get him. I am glad I got Tucker Robertson, but we didn't get Jack. So the two people that I prioritized to talk to, in addition to Tad O'Had, all got called up. So both Tucker and Jack headed to the Coachella Valley Firebirds, with Jack LaFontaine going to the Firebirds, or I should say it this way, because Chris Driedger is headed to the Seattle Kraken. That left a spot open for Jack LaFontaine to return to the Coachella Valley Firebirds. But we'll talk about the prospect pipeline a little bit throughout the week, because the Kansas City Mavericks will play Tulsa tomorrow. So I'm going to get some more interviews. The Locked On Kraken insiders, you'll get those first. As a reminder, to become an insider yourself, you can always check the show notes, but you can also text 918-731-3154 to get a 14-day free trial upon your first sign up. Again, that's text 918-731-3154. And Locked On insiders have been getting my interviews with prospects, which included Tucker, who just got called up, and we'll have Tad O'Had talking about the pipeline. But I want to talk a little bit about Chris Driedger. I said in the offseason, while I was in Seattle for preseason, that this had to be a competitive goalie camp. And hearing what Joey Daccord said, I think things are really going to get interesting. I alluded to this before, but the understanding that I had while I was in Seattle for training camp is that some of the activity coming outside of the crease, maybe being more active with the stick and being able to be a part of moving the puck up out of the defensive zone, some of that didn't always sit well from what I've gathered with some of the people with the Seattle Kraken, that in respect to Joey Daccord. So now Joey Daccord, is he our default number one? Is Chris Driedger now coming up? Is he gonna be our number one? I honestly don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is I can tell you what Chris Driedger has been doing while he's been at Coachella Valley. So let's take a look. If you're watching on YouTube, you can look along with me. If you're not, no worries. I'll spell it all out for you. But this is Chris Driedger's bio for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. You can see, obviously, he played 14 games last year. That's on the back end, or him coming back from his rehabilitation from his ACL. This year, he's got 10 games played. He's given up 22 goals against, just literally a minute under 500 minutes played. And he is 6-4 wins, losses, and one of those is a shootout. Save percentage is .915, a .220 goals against average. So that's where Chris is right now for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. If you're curious to know where that leaves him in the AHL, now on the screen, you'll see that he's top 15 right now in the AHL when it comes to goals against average, right there at number 12, the .220, the aforementioned .220. So you'll see that he's towards the bottom, but this is actually inverted. So he's actually top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, well, he's number 4. He's top 5. So 22 goals against. You can see that there's 4 different goalies that have that, including from the San Jose Barracuda. Oh, love the San Jose Barracuda. So that's interesting. I couldn't flip that for you, but anyway, so with save percentage, though, let's see where he fares. Save percentage, we see that Chris Driedger is still in that top 15. He's at 14, as a matter of fact. So, he's doing all right. He's doing all right in AHL competition. I think similarly to all of our other teams, if we're being honest, well, I think really want to focus on Seattle and the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Some of that, especially goals against, I want to keep that into perspective on how our teams play when it comes to defensive assignments, which is why I'm so thrilled that this came across my desk, so to speak. An account with the name Allison Ballard, Strains of Horror. I think that's what it's supposed to be. Anyway, Allison, in a thread, someone asks, why does the team, the Seattle Kraken, seem to not help Philipp Grubauer out better when he is the goalie? How many times have we had this very conversation? How many times have we had this very, 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 very conversation? Well, Allison is making me feel a little less, I don't know, I feel vindicated by Allison's response. Here it is. I am going to make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. But Allison says it's likely the defense is instructed, or has learned to play differently in front of Philipp Grubauer according to his individual strengths and weaknesses. And then it's not just an opinion, but Allison is using some stats to potentially kind of corroborate this. So these are, what Allison is saying is that Philipp Grubauer is really good at seeing the puck and making shots when they are coming in from distance. I talked about this when it came to Martin Jones. I said my eye test tells me he's really good in small spaces, not great when the puck is coming in from distance. And it's the opposite for Philipp Grubauer. Allison is deducing that the defensive schemes for Grubauer are to keep the opponents up and out. Or in other words, make sure that Philipp Grubauer can see the puck. We've talked about this on the show before as well. If Philipp Grubauer can see the puck, he's usually saving the puck. And the theory by Allison, and I haven't really gone so deep as to figure out what I think this means for Joey Daccord, but excuse me, let me go back here. Joey Daccord she says because of his puck handling skills and his weakness around the paint area, needs to work on more in tandem with his defense. And maybe that's why I thought it was odd that Wenberg would try to make that save there. I mean, again, Joey Daccord came way out of the crease, so that might not be the best example. But if you're already on high alert, like, hey, if it gets in tight, we need to make sure we have extra bodies for our goaltender. I don't know. Are you buying it? I think this, for Grubauer, I think this somewhat explains what I've been seeing for the last few years. I just didn't know. I didn't know what data to pull or what I should be looking at to pull this. With Joey Daccord, I'm not sure that I'm sold on what Allison is selling, but I think it's an interesting point, and it's something I will be watching out for more. So now the question becomes, what do we need? What do we need in net right now? I think the obvious answer is that we need Martin Jones. I'm somewhat joking. Somewhat. Just a little bit. We need wins. We need wins. And here's another thing that's been going all along Kraken, kind of the Kraken family, but in the standings. Right now, the Seattle Kraken are technically in position to be a wild card team in the Pacific Division. We got the Vegas Golden Knights, the Vancouver Canucks, and the LA Kings holding 1, 2, and 3 respectively. And then as far as the Western Conference, you've got St. Louis, who in 17 games is 9-7 with 19 points, just ahead of us. The Seattle Kraken 20 games were 7-8 below 500, just a touch below. We also have 19 points. So, that pulls us ahead of the Ducks. But they have games in hand. So at least as of right now, the season is not ending right now, so we don't have to worry about this. But, getting some points is better than no points. We can say that for sure. But it just feels hard. I mean, between continuing to lose leads to also losing those leads late in the third period, these 4-3 games, these 1-goal games, it's just a little painful. And, I feel like we went through a lot of different pain points as Seattle Kraken fans. I'm trying to figure out where to rank this between season 1, season 2, and now season 3. And I don't really know. They all just seem like a team still figuring out its identity, like a team that built through an expansion draft and it has not been able to fully build through the draft and doesn't have any, blockbuster kind of hallmark trades or super, elite level talent on the blue line or in our forwards. It's just, we're going to have to wait a little longer. It's just a little frustrating. All of that to say, who are we going to see tomorrow when we play the San Jose Sharks? I'm of two minds. On the one hand, Joey Daccord had a pretty solid game. I don't know that it makes sense to not give him the action because he's been with the team. Chris Driedger now has to get integrated into the team. It didn't look like he was at practice today from what I saw. So he's got to travel from Coachella Valley and come to Seattle for that game against the Sharks. I think Joey should be able, the Seattle Kraken, one way or another, should be able to handle the San Jose Sharks. On the other hand, maybe you give Chris Driedger a go. I don't know. But the decision was made to go with Joey Daccord and not Driedger as the backup goalie. So what does it mean if we do see Chris Driedger and not Joey Daccord? We're going to have to talk about that later on in the week once we know a little bit more. But talking about tomorrow, not only are we going to be looking to see who are our goaltenders on the ice and who's the first one to leave the ice, but we'll also be looking at some new threads. That's right. The Seattle Kraken themselves have officially announced that the unveiling of the Winter Classic jersey will happen tomorrow at Kraken Community Iceplex. Stay tuned for more on that. Today's episode of Locked on Kraken also brought to you by eBay Motors. Now, we love patience, we love drive, and I'm learning patience. Being a Seattle Kraken fan, that combination is what brings home winning trophies. And it's also what will keep your ride or die. Whoop, whoop. Moving and alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to keep it at peak performance levels, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LEDs, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Check out eBay Motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thanks as always for making Locked on Kraken a part of your daily destination. I've mentioned Locked on NHL a time or two. I've been on Locked on NHL and will continue to do that every other week for the Women's Hockey Spotlight. And then whenever Gil wants to talk Seattle Kraken, which with this jersey reveal, I'm thinking we're going to talk Seattle Kraken hockey on Locked on NHL coming up soon. So make sure you head over there if you haven't listened to today's episode already. And don't forget Locked on Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You won't want to miss it. Okay. I feel like I talked about this in passing. If you don't know, Locked On was founded by David Locke, and he's actually the radio broadcaster for the Utah Jazz. I tried to see what David knew about the Utah Jazz rolling up in Seattle Kraken jerseys, but not just any Seattle Kraken jersey. They rolled up in what we believe, not verified, but will be tomorrow, is the Seattle Kraken Winter Classic jersey. Now, if you follow Locked on Kraken on social media, particularly Twitter or X, whatever it's called, who knows, then you know that I'm not too keen on the jersey design, but I'm particularly not too keen on the jersey unveiling. That's just been it's like a soft launch is what we call it in the restaurant industry. Like just two players on the Utah Jazz just randomly rolling up in a Seattle Kraken jersey, and we have no idea why. Nobody told us what was going on. Nobody said anything. For those who maybe missed it, here is what we have seen. The Utah Jazz, we saw some kind of wrestling podcast. I don't know. I really have no idea what's going on here. I think these are okay. Obviously, we've talked about this before. We've seen, a potential leak or whatever happen before. That was months ago. But this is what we're talking about here. So we've got a kind of a powder blue, a gray kind of color, and a dark blue. And then the red, or I should say that the Kraken S is all red, not just the red glare, but it's all red, and it has Kraken in a kind of cream color. There's a cream outline, and the letters Kraken in a cream color within the S. So very Seattle Metropolitans. Now, as a New York Metropolitans fan, as someone who is reading or has read most of When It Mattered Most, and is excited for the next edition that's coming out. We're gonna have to talk about that. I love the homage to history. For me, I mean, yeah, sure, the S is, I guess, nostalgic, but it's missing green. It's missing green for me. I feel like they could have gotten green in here with some kind of accent color. I know you don't want to go all green. I'm sure, we talked about this in the off season. I don't know what is up with Seattle Kraken and then the Seattle Metropolitans and trademarks and stuff like that. But I feel like there is green missing. It's winter, baby. This gives me ice for sure. I want some green. I want some green in here. I don't love, I think the cream color as it is in the outline for the S is fine. It looks to me, just from these photos, I have not physically touched one of these. It looks to me like the color of the cream on the S, and then the color that we have here as the stripe, the light stripe, like it's a little different. It looks different. It kind of looks like dirty water, kind of grungy to me from these photos. It's not as clean as I think it should be, I guess is what I'm saying. That cream color is not really doing it for me. I think it could look clean and look more cream if they had an accent of green, or if they did the piping a little bit different. But I'm not in love with this. And I don't know if what I'm saying even makes any sense, because I am not a designer by any stretch of the imagination. I can just tell you, I feel like it's missing green. I feel like the green would give it a pop. I don't know. What I will say is, though, I like them infinitely better than what we've seen trotting around the interwebs when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. Those are a big woof. Those are a big heck to the nah to me. To me, it's a no. And, I know people are saying it is an homage to the Metropolitans. And if you look at this jersey, I mean, obviously it's black and white. And I think that's exactly what they're going for. I can't see this because it's black and white, but I just, I don't know. I don't care for it. I get it, but I don't like it. I just don't. Better than what Vegas has, in my opinion. And at least we actually have like a history that we can go from. But I'm not in love. Not even close. Am I going to buy a jersey? Absolutely not. I'm thinking it's a no. I'm thinking it's a no for me. I don't have money for a jersey that I don't even really like. If they have other gear, I'll buy that. Yeah. I want something winter classic for sure, but I have to find the right situation. I'm going to be looking at the hats. If Ebbets Field, hold on. If Ebbets Field makes these kinds of hats, this is my Jackie Robinson hat with my Willie O'Ree pin. If they make these, I'm in. I am so in, it's not even funny. If I can find a good looking winter classic hat, felt hat, old school style, I'm in. I am so in, it's not even funny. It's not even funny. But from the design alone, no, I'm not feeling it. From the design alone, I'm not feeling it. So Ebbets Field, I don't know. Probably, I don't know if we're going to get these from Ebbets Field. Jackie Robinson hat. I like wearing this one backwards. I don't know. If I find a hat like this, old school style, I know I mentioned Dave Hakstol was asked about a fedora. He seemed like he wasn't into it. For those who are OGers, everydayers, you probably remember, I'm like super into hats. I freaking love hats. I love headbands. I love anything, especially as I'm letting my hair grow out. I want to push my hair back as much as possible. That's a whole nother story. I want to see what's the hat game going to look like? I am planning to be in Seattle. I put in for my credentials and staying at the hotel block with the NHL. So I'm going to rub elbows with the big guys. But also stay tuned. Maybe have something happening with a particular, local pub. So we'll see. I will let you know once we have more details. We are going to reconvene after the Thanksgiving holiday. Speaking of after Thanksgiving, also going to do some squad casts, but not with other Locked On NHL hosts. with other Seattle Kraken podcasts. So we're going to have those details coming in fast and furious, because after Thanksgiving, it's a mad dash to New Year's as far as I'm concerned. So we got a lot of things to plan, and they're coming fast. They're coming furious. Let me know. What do you think about the Winter Classic jerseys? Either way, let me know before the official unveiling, which is happening tomorrow at Kraken Community Iceplex. This came from the newsletter. If you're not a part of the Inside Edge, you should just definitely subscribe. In the Inside Edge newsletter, morning skate invite. Our Winter Classic jersey will debut at Morning Skate tomorrow. Watch your Seattle Kraken prepare for the San Jose Sharks, say hello to Bowie, and be the first to witness another historical Kraken jersey drop. Doors open at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. So that's your chance, folks. I will not be there. Speaking of my hair, which I've mentioned a few times now on this podcast, I have a hair appointment, but I should be able to react to any of the images, videos, and the like that come out around that time. So that's our show, folks. Didn't love that we lost to Calgary. I really didn't love that. We just had so many other things to talk about. I didn't break that emotion down. Gotta get these next two. Calgary, we started with Calgary this week. We have San Jose tomorrow, and then Vancouver again. Then we have Chicago, Toronto coming up. Chicago, obviously, we'd love to get a win there. Toronto, Nylander. Woo-wee! Nylander tearing it up. Goes home 90 tickets or something that he had. Put on a show for the home crowd. That's what the Seattle Kraken need to do. Put on a show at Climate Pledge Arena. It's time to take control of our home record. Hold fast, stay true, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Locked on Kraken. Until then, be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. Peace out, everybody.